Hey, Vic, I want to go to something that you've been obviously telling our audience about. You had been playing oil to go down. Then last week you told us, no, that was about it you felt for the down move. Can you give us your take on oil right now?
Let's put it this way. I think it's for the oil market and the Canadian dollar, and they do go in lockstep a lot. Both made lows on the 5th of May and have both rallied since then. Canada has rallied about 2.5 cents. The crude oil market rallied about $8. The reason it seems to me that we have these swings up and down in crude oil is we have changing opinions in the market about the supply of oil. And in the last couple of weeks here, I would suggest to you that OPEC, and especially Saudi Arabia, has been managing the market's expectations that they were going to extend the agreement they'd made last November to reduce their production and perhaps even do something more than that to try to reduce supply so the prices would go up. If you can get that concept, that's what the swings in, I believe, the swings in crude oil have been all about. So, this past week here, what was it, Thursday the 25th, we had the OPEC meeting in Vienna, and by golly, they came out and said, we're going to do just what we said we're going to do, and the market said, that's it. It was a classic case of buy the rumor and sell the news. The crude oil market dropped $3.50 that day. That's 7%. That's from top to bottom. That's, I think, the biggest one-day down move we've had since February. And it's really a case, if I could go to this, Mike, last December on your show, when they had not only had the OPEC people said they're going to cut back, then you had the non-OPEC group said they'll cut back too. And I said, let's quote Jack Nicholson's movie, as good as it gets for the bullish news. And I think we're kind of at that again here. I'm inclined to think that going over the next couple of months at least, we see the path of least resistance is more likely down than up because there's a hell of a lot of crude oil around.
You mentioned the Canadian dollar. Did it sort of follow suit in that trading pattern? When crude dropped after the announcement, did the Canadian dollar follow suit?
Yeah, it did. And Canada, I call it turnaround day back on May the 5th. We rallied about 2.5 cents, kind of going up with crude, but also going up while the U.S. dollar was weak. And there's another thing with Canada, and that is the first 4 months of this year, there's 35 countries in the world, their currencies, and Canada was dead last. In other words, it was the weakest currency of that group of 35. The international sentiment, as I call it, about Canada got extremely negative. NAFTA, home capital, falling oil prices, our interest rates are low, the Bank of Canada doesn't seem to want to do anything, real estate stories. We had this massive buildup of short positions on the Canadian dollar, and it's got even bigger just this past week, and that is a real important variable, as we've seen so many times with the markets. When everybody kind of gets voting one way, the market, goes back and bites them.
Okay, one more thing, if you don't mind, Vic. I wouldn't mind getting a quick take on gold, because we've had that rally we talked about, $50, in 2 weeks?
Yeah. The last 2 weeks, gold's up $50 or so. Of course, we've seen some big swings in gold since we made the 6-year lows back in December of 15. I guess, and remember, the gold market had a real dump in the last couple of months of last year once Mr. Trump was elected president. The U.S. dollar surged higher. U.S. dollar went to 14-year highs. I've just got this sense here right now, if I just look at the chart, I don't know what it is, I'll look at it, I say, this gold market looks good. And then my fundamental hat says, well, you can't have gold and the U.S. dollar both going up at the same time, and say, yes, you can. That can happen, especially if the psychology in the market gets risk off. People are worried. You could see the U.S. dollar turn higher and gold go up at the same time. And just to finish on that, the U.S. dollar is down 7% since the highs we made right at the beginning of the year. I'm making a very small bet here, and I'll add to it if I'm right, that the U.S. dollar is going to turn higher.
I'll leave the last word to you. You sent me earlier this week a great political insight of the week.
Okay. This was a CNBC news anchor, Sarah Eisner, and she was talking about Trump's recent trip. And here's her quote, more or less. She says, it appears he was received so well in the Middle East because he was not Barack Obama. And he is being received rather badly in Europe for the same reason, because he is not Barack Obama. And boy,
great stuff.
The G7 meeting we just had where Trump didn't go along with everybody else on the global warming thing, and Miss Merkel of Germany says she's very disappointed with him.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. Vic, thanks for taking the time. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. You too.